right, it is the 11th of August, the year 2023, a day that we're here to inform you on what's happening in the country and beyond. Many things have been happening in the country and beyond our borders, including a cry for justice by Kiambu squatters. That and much more in this particular bulletin, but first, the highlights.
Tough times ahead for Kenyans as petition challenging Finance Act 2023 set to be heard in September.
This is KUTV Primetime with MUTEGI.
It is true. This is KUTV Primetime News with me, MUTEGI K. Martin. In this particular bulletin, in a few minutes, we shall be hosting a very interesting lady who will be coming to tell us about sexual and reproductive health. You want to stay tuned to that conversation. But before that, we want to introduce you to our bulletins and to our bulletin and see what's happening in the country and beyond. Our sign language interpreter goes by the name MUTAVA Mongeni. My name is MUTEGI K. Martin. Once again, let's get started. Now, President William Ruto today concluded his two-day state visit in Mozambique, where he met with the country's leaders in Maputo for talks on strengthening bilateral ties between Kenya and Mozambique and Africa at large. And as Lynette Maina now reports, President Ruto called for the removal of visa requirements in African countries.
On the last day of his state visit to Mozambique, President William Ruto has continued to cement on the importance of strengthening the partnership between the two promising countries. While in a meeting at the Assembly of the Republic in Maputo, the head of state called on African leaders in parliament to be at the forefront in championing for the continent's growth. President Ruto, who yesterday signed 8 memoranda of understanding together with Mozambique President Filipe Nyusi, aimed at strengthening the ties between the two countries, has called on for initiation and execution of legislations that will unlock Africa's potential as well as create opportunities for the people. During a banquet at Ponta Vermelha Palace in Maputo, Ruto reiterated on the removal of visa requirements among African states to strengthen trade.
Find challenges of barriers and roadblocks and bureaucracy around movement of goods and services in our continent. I know with your commitment, the commitment of the people of this great nation, we will move towards a visa-free region and a visa-free continent. Kenya already made the decision 5 years ago that any African who wants to visit Kenya can acquire a visa at the airport in Nairobi.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, we are confident that your visit will cement the bonds and the communion of Pan-Africanist ideas which stimulate brotherhood, solidarity, and the spirit of solidarity that unite us.
The President was accompanied by the Cabinet Secretary for Foreign and Diaspora Affairs, Alfred Mutua, as well as the Cabinet Secretary for Defense, Aden Duale. The visit to Mozambique, which is also the first as the head of state, is expected to robust bilateral ties between the two countries. Lynette Maina, KUTV.
Now, in a bid to improve university funding, the government has introduced new funding model that seeks to enhance equality and reduce the burden of debt in universities. Compared to the current model, which is based on the differentiated unit cost, that is DUC, the new model will categorize students into 4 levels. And as our very own Mercy Wanjiru breaks down the difference between these two funding models, is what we get to say tonight. Take a look.
The government has scrapped the automatic grant for students joining higher learning institutions and introduced a new model that will take effect in September. As per the new model, students will be funded individually based on a carefully curated criteria. The model states that students will be categorized under the vulnerable and extremely needy, where they will qualify for 100% government funding for their studies with funds in form of scholarships and loans. For those deemed to be in the needy and less needy category, they will get 93% government funding, with the students bearing 7% of the tuition cost. However, the current funding model used in universities is based on the differentiated unit cost, where funding is pegged on the number of undergraduate students registered on the regular program and the kind of courses they take. The government has now changed to the new Higher Education Fund model to address inequalities that saw the rich and the poor students receive the same amounts. The implementation of the DUC started in the financial year 2016-2017, where critics fear that it will favor big and older universities. Under the differentiated unit cost, the government through the University Fund was expected to cater for 80% of the cost, while the remaining 20% was left for students and the institutions. According to Joseph Ndegwa, the lending manager in the Higher Education Loan Board, the new model is a solution to university loans and will enhance focus on training and research.
This is the killer punch we've been waiting for. Because when you've had KU at the level of the program cost, what you mean is you're transferring enough money to KU to do other things. They will not be thinking about making money anymore. Okay. They'll be thinking about teaching and research. Okay. So this is the solution we've been waiting for.
With the new model, the government says it's committed to ensure no students falls behind and financial barriers do not obstruct their academic journey. However, only time will tell whether the new model will achieve its goal of equality as promised by President William Ruto. Lynette Maina, KUTV.
Azimio leader Raila Odinga has led an onslaught against Police Inspector General Japheth Koome over his recent insinuation of hiring dead bodies by the opposition to portray victims of police brutality. Odinga spoke in a requiem mass for 12 victims of violence during the recent anti-government protests held at Bondo Stadium, Siaya County.
Tributes and condolences went hand in hand with political melodrama as Azimio La Umoja leaders Sai and Low thronged Bondo Stadium, Siaya County for a requiem mass of 12 victims of alleged police brutality.
Mr. Koome, you come, come. Mr. Koome, you just must resign.
Japheth Koome was the favorite cuisine on the menu, receiving non-stop banter predominantly for his recent insinuation that the opposition hired dead bodies in morgues to portray victims of violence.
You know, Koome said that we hired dead bodies from the mortuaries. Police protocol. Police also have their protocol.
A total of 12 bodies were arrayed at the Bondo Stadium to send a valid testament to the Inspector General that indeed many died out of police brutality, as the mayor leaders calling for the immediate removal of the police chief.
Kwa hivyo, mtu anaweza kutolewa kama Inspector General Police, kama mwenda wazimu, kama ni bankrupt, kama ana fail under chapter 6 on integrity. And therefore that's why I believe we Inspector General, if indeed he is an Inspector General, whether he has actually read the Constitution.
Pia tuje hapa siku ya leo, kando na kusema pole kwenu, kuambia yule IG wa police Bwana Koome akome tabia mbaya. Koome afanye nini? Koome afanye nini? Tuambia Bwana Koome akome, sababu hawa walio mbele zetu ni watu.
Azimio leader Raila Odinga, after pouring his condolences to the bereaved, directed a powerful scolding to President William Ruto for his chest stamping in his mastery to suppress the anti-government protests.
Mr. Kome is but an instrument, because we've heard Mr. Ruto bragging all over. Nitawakalia ngumu. Tutawakalia ngumu hawa watu. Tutawanyorosha. Tutawanyorosha. Those are the words of Mr. Ruto. Polisi wamefanya kazi mzuri kwa kulinda Wakenya. Ati hatuwezi kukubali wengine wafanye maandamano ya kuharibu mali ya Wakenya. Sasa Mr. Ruto, which mali was being destroyed in Bondo?
Following the long chronology of victims who succumbed to police brutality, Azimio leader Raila Odinga has pronounced a new plan to hold indoor demonstrations as a way of dodging the wrath of the state.
We don't even have to bring people on the streets. We can tell people to stay home. That's another way of expressing displeasure and dissatisfaction. Next time we will not tell the people to come to the streets, we tell the people to stay in their homes.
Hate and hardlining politics carried the day at Bondo, threatening the success of the national dialogue between Azimio and Kenya Kwanza, barely 48 hours after the first meeting between the two parties on Wednesday. Muneneweru, KU TV.
Now, the second day of the Christian Scholars Association Conference continued today, with scholars and stakeholders discussing various topics. The main objective of the conference is to strengthen the relationship between academia and the church. Now, in today's session, the society officially launched the Christian Scholars Association of Kenya, which will run under the leadership of Professor Paul Mbugua, a lecturer at Kenyatta University in the Department of Plant Sciences.
The second day of the Christian Scholars Association conference commenced today. The conference, whose objective is to discuss issues aimed at strengthening the relation between the work of academic scholars and the church, brings together various Christian scholars and stakeholders from different parts of the world. In today's session, the Christian Scholars Association officially launched the Christian Scholars Association of Kenya, which advances the goals and agendas of the association. Professor Paul Mbugua from the Kenyatta University Department of Plant Sciences has been appointed as the president of the association, with Dr. Mary Wahungu as the vice president. Pastor Steve Nduto takes on the position of the organization's secretary and Dr. Elizabeth Andango as the assistant secretary. To ensure stability and accountability, Dr. Daniel Gakunga will serve as the treasurer and Dr. Joyce Wangira as a member. Dr. Mary Wahungu, who is now the vice president of the association, emphasized the importance of such associations, highlighting that they contribute to integrating the efforts of religious scholars and improving both society and religion itself. Some of those who attended the conference expressed their satisfaction with the knowledge shared during the event, stating that it has the potential to transform the existing relationship between scholars and society as a whole. Yvonne Kemuma, KU TV.
Now we move over to Kiambu County, where a group of squatters have called on the government to solve a 419-acre land dispute that has lasted for over 27 years. While pleading with the president, the squatters have accused local administrators of conspiring with land cartels and denying them their rights, and are asking the president to intervene and ensure justice prevails.
Squatters under the umbrella of Committee Forest Squatters Association is accusing local administrators of colluding with cartels to drive them out of the land, saying that they have lived there since 1996. According to the Squatters Association chairman Philip Makau, the 419 acres land was allocated to them by the former President Daniel Arap Moi in 1996 and has grown over.
Once again, we apologize for that mix-up, and we shall be making sure we get you that story in the course of this particular bulletin. But now it is time for us to take our first short break right here on KUTV Primetime News. When we come back, we have more in store for you, including a discussion about sexual and reproductive health. You don't want to miss discussion. Stay tuned to KUTV Primetime News.
miaka mitatu sasa tangu kuanzishwa kwa kituo cha chuo kikuu cha Kenyatta cha kuwezesha wanawake kiuchumi maarufu KU Rehab. Maelfu ya wanawake wamenufaika kutokana na utafiti unaofanywa na wasomi wa chuo kikuu cha Kenyatta.
Ni sasa unajua wametufunza sasa tujue hata wamama wanaweza simama mahali wanaume wanasimama.
Kwa hiyo biashara yangu ya poshomi, nimejua nikifanya leo, yani you know I'm selling maize na kushaga. So jioni nakuja kufanya hesabu, nitoe expenses, nione income yenye nimepata, ni safe.
KU Rehab hushirikisha washikadau katika utekelezaji wa mapendekezo ya ripoti za utafiti kupitia kufanya maamuzi na uundaji sera katika ngazi za kaunti.
As we influence policy ourselves, we use data for policy. Also use this data for fundraising, which they are doing.
KU Rehab kupitia mradi wa uongozi na utawala ulitua kaunti ya Bomet kufanya utafiti ili kuwafikia lengo lao la kuwezesha wanawake kustawi katika uongozi.
Nimejaribu juzi kuwania kiti cha director Kenya National Chamber of Commerce, and thank God I was elected, being a woman. And again I've got other leadership positions yenye nimepata.
Kwa tathmini zaidi tazama kwa utendeti runinga ya KU Jumapili hii saa 1 kamili.
Are you an aspiring media practitioner, a graduate, or you just want to advance your skills in television production? Then welcome to Kenyatta University, where education meets innovation. KUTV, the premier university television station in Kenya, is now offering short courses in TV studio, field technical operations, and video editing. Through these courses, you will acquire hands-on skills on camera operations, media production, lighting techniques, audio-visual editing, and sound and visual control, and how to operate key equipment in modern TV control room. Enroll today at KUTV and discover your full potential in cutting-edge TV broadcasting. Graduates of these courses will receive professional certificates. For more information, visit our offices at KUTV Studios or call us on 020-870-4252 or 020-870-4255 or SMS us on 0739-110-544. KUTV, a new experience.
Kenyatta University involved in this. And Kenyatta University, of course, is our premier institution for higher learning.
You are watching KUTV Primetime News with Mutegi K. Martin.
All right, welcome back to KUTV Primetime News. We're here to inform you on what's happening in the country and beyond. I want to take you to Mombasa. And now the Kenyan government is creating shelters for human trafficking survivors. According to the authorities, the goal is to help victims recover from their traumatic experiences, rebuild their lives, and prosecute human traffickers. All right, I'm sorry for that particular mishap. We shall continue. And as I informed you before we went on a break, we are here to talk about sexual reproductive health. And Lucy Wamboi joins me on our set this particular night to tell us exactly what issues are coming up in that particular area and how we can actually prepare ourselves to continue to safeguard our people when it comes to sexual and reproductive health. Karibu sana to the conversation tonight.
Thank you.
All right. Let's begin by you introducing yourself and what you have been doing in the field as far as sexual and reproductive health is concerned.
My name is Lucy Wamboi.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I'm a student. Also, I do social justice advocacy. And when it comes to sexual reproductive health, I close the gap, like the digital gap, because we are in the social media era, like we are in the digital era, and a lot of people are running to the social media to get a lot of information there. So I just close the gap by providing the right information, but we also do it physically.
Something interesting you mentioned already, talking about social media. How has the social media become even more effective in making sure people get to understand this field much more when it comes to access of knowledge?
Social media is much more effective because as a young girl or a young boy and you have a question, there's something you want to know, you just go into the internet and you can access all the information that you need. However, you can get the right information, but you will also get people who will mislead you, because there are people who are doing that because they are being paid, but they don't necessarily really care about your well-being. So that's where we step in and focus on giving the right information.
All right. So yours is bridging the gap between what is called misinformation and misconception into people getting what is actually right about sexual and reproductive health.
Yeah, the scientific information.
All right. So what are some of the misconceptions that we have about sexual and reproductive health? I want to remind our viewers that many people shy away from this topic because they find it as a taboo to talk about as Africans. So how do you bring in, what are some of the misconceptions that exist in the African society or in the culture, in the African cultural setup, and how are you using social media to make sure these misconceptions are eradicated?
First of all, I think it's important if I mention what is sexual reproductive health. Sexual reproductive health is a state of physical, emotional, and just well-being in relationship to the sexual reproductive. You know, and when we talk about the sexual reproductive health, we are talking about HIV infections, STI infection, early and unintended pregnancies, and gender-based violence. And you know, all these things affect our mental well-being. You asked about the misconceptions that are there in the African community. We as Africans, or we as Kenyans, we tend to avoid this topic completely. And these things are happening. We assume like these things are not happening, and we are not able to give our children the right information. Because, for example, if a girl or a boy is like 5 years old, they don't need a lot of information in regards to early and unintended pregnancies and all these things. What they need to be told is that if someone touches you like this, if someone touches you like this is your private part and no one has the right to touch you. So if they do, you can report this to your teacher, you can report this to your parent. However, now when the kid is about 9 years old, you need to tell them about the adolescent stage. You need to tell the girls, you will begin to menstruate, your body is going to have physical changes, you will feel some type of way, and prepare them about all this information. And then when they get to an older age, you need to teach them of how to protect themselves, because we have a lot of kids who are exposed to these things because about peer pressure. And this reminds me of something. When people join the universities and colleges, they are coming from a point where they were like some sort of caged, and they were not able to explore the world. You're coming from school, you're coming from home, your parent says you should be at home by 6 p.m., by 5 p.m., and so you're not able to explore the world. But now when you move to college and universities, you get massive freedom, and there's a lot of peer pressure that comes with that. You find that someone gets to university, the first year, they're told that, oh, you can test alcohol. They test alcohol, they test weed, and then before they realize it, they are already addicted. You find that there is also a lot of peer pressure when it comes to having multiple sexual partners, and this can lead to HIV infection. It leads to unintended pregnancies, and it also leads to STIs infections.
Amazing. As you spoke, you reminded me when I was young, we used to have what I would call uncomprehensive, if there's such a word, sexual education, where it was just threats of what is going to happen, and that is really what I would call part of the archaic African culture of trying to stigmatize this entire thing. Yet we have seen a lot of teenagers in this country get pregnant. We have seen major teenage pregnancies. On the onset of COVID-19, we saw that on the increase. Children even being impregnated by their own parents and their uncles. And so the question that comes to my mind right now is there was a period where comprehensive sexual education was being brought into the schools, and there was a lot of opposition. Is it time for us to really embrace this and make sure that this is actually something that goes on every now once in a while? The children, the teenagers being taught exactly what goes around sexual and reproductive health.
I think what we need to do from the parents, the religious leaders, and the teachers, we need to tell the children the right things. We need to tell them the reality of life, because as you said, your life was revolved around threats, where your parents tell you that if you do this is gonna, but they don't tell you the exact things that are happening. You actually mentioned that we have a lot of unintended pregnancies in Kenya. Kenya is actually ranked third worldwide. And you also mentioned that we have children who got pregnant by their fathers, their uncles. And most of these cases is not like these kids really want to get pregnant with their father. This is a result of gender-based violence most of the time. And I would actually love to mention something about gender-based violence, and probably the person who is viewing and they don't know what is gender-based violence. Gender-based violence is abuse on the basis of gender, whereby someone is abusing you because you're a man, and they would never do that to a woman. And someone is abusing you because you're a woman, and they would never do that to a man. And this results to a lot of sexual, physical, psychosocial, and emotional harm. And these things are there. We actually, last year, the Kenya Demographic Survey 2022, we saw that 43% of the Kenyan women believe in wife beating for various reasons. Like, imagine something as simple as burning the food. You're supposed to be beaten. That is what they believe, because I feel like we are coming from a culture of oppression, and these things are brought about by our cultural and social norms. And I think we should try and get rid of these cultures that, oppress people.
Amazing. Just before we go for a break, I know after the break, I want you to bring a conversation about what exactly you're doing on the ground, and we're going to be looking at different things that you do on the ground. But before we go for a break, how is this African society warming up to the idea of getting to talk to their kids? And even more importantly, how are the teenagers embracing, and how do you make sure that teenagers can come and tell you stuff? Because what happens once puberty hits, teenagers keep to themselves. They don't want to share what is going on in their lives. And probably this is the time where, as you talk about gender-based violence, this is where it kicks in, where their body has begun changing. So the people around them notice that their body changes, and they would end up being abused in silence. What do you do for these young people to open up to you and share what's going on so they can find help?
When it comes to these issues, the first person you interact with when you're born is your parent. So I think our parents have a key role in this. They should start embracing these things because these are the things that are happening. And if a parent is not open enough with their kid, then that means the kid might be violated and they would never consider talking about it with their parent because they know the first thing that the parent will do is probably beat them, judge them, and make them feel bad about it. But for us, we are trying to create a safe space where we don't judge people and everyone feels safe to share their story. You know, the thing that puts people away from sharing is fear of judgment. A lot of people fear being judged. Yeah.
All right. As we go for a break, I want you to come back and talk more about the safe spaces. Are there events that you're organizing? Are you going for outreach to find them in their homes and schools? I want us to get to the detail of that so that we can understand even how we can incorporate this around the country and beyond, now that we should be concerned about what's happening globally. So we take a short break, but we'll be coming back to get into the gist of the conversation. All right?
All right.
All right. Thank you so much for keeping and staying tuned to KUTV Primetime News. We take a very short break. We'll be back to continue with this interesting conversation and see where we are headed to as far as sexual reproductive health is concerned and how we can actually shape our future to become much better. We take a short break. We'll be right back in a bit.
Cow have a huge bone frame, yet our beef cows, they need the meat part of it, so they may have a small bone frame. So when we interbreed the beef cow and the dairy cow, now it's like bring the beef and placing on a huge bone frame of the dairy cow.
Are you an aspiring media practitioner, a graduate, or you just want to advance your skills in television production? Then welcome to Kenyatta University, where education meets innovation. KUTV, the premier university television station in Kenya, is now offering short courses in TV studio, field technical operations, and video editing. Through these courses, you will acquire hands-on skills on camera operations, media production, lighting techniques, audio-visual editing, and sound and visual control, and how to operate key equipment in modern TV control room. Enroll today at KUTV and discover your full potential in cutting-edge TV broadcasting. Graduates of these courses will receive professional certificates. For more information, visit our offices at KUTV Studios or call us on 020-870-4252 or 020-870-4255 or SMS us on 0739-110-544. KUTV, a new experience.
Repossessing your property, intellectual or material.
This and more, only on Law Matters.
You are watching KUTV Primetime News with Mutegi K. Martin.
All right, welcome back to KUTV Primetime News. The conversation is about sexual reproductive health, And I'm still with Lucy Wamboi, a brilliant lady who is in the field making sure that we get to understand what this is and making sure that we change misconceptions and better our society as far as sexual reproductive health is concerned. Welcome back.
Thank you.
All right, before we went on a break, I was asking you questions in regarding to what's happening on the ground, and you are working with a very interesting program called the O3 program. What exactly are you doing in the field, and what challenges are you finding? Challenges that belong to us as a society.
Yeah, as you mentioned, I'm working with the O3 as the Kenyan ambassador. The O3 is a program that advocates for our rights, our lives, and our future. It's a program by the UNESCO. We're actually in the second phase of it. It was launched in Kenya in 2021, and we launched the second phase in June 2023. We've been able to implement it at the University of Nairobi, all the 10 campuses, as well as the Kenya Medical Training Colleges, the Nairobi, Mombasa, and Kisumu. So what we do is that we are able to provide information to the university students, because I feel when it comes to sexual reproductive health, the most affected people are people in the higher learning institutions, because as I mentioned, that is where now you get a lot of freedom, and freedom comes with a lot of responsibilities. You have freedom, you have friends, and friends bring a lot of peer pressure and making everything look like cool. So if you're not doing this, then you're not cool. So we are targeting mostly the higher learning institutions, and we are able to provide the right information to these people.
All right. Thank you so much for that. And I know there are many, there are a couple of organizations, not many, but a couple of organizations that are targeting this particular issue in the society. Do you think there are enough of you in the field, or are you still recruiting for more people?
I don't think we can have enough people to do social justice advocacy.
Okay.
And I think the thing with us as human beings, we believe that when it comes to people who are activists against gender-based violence, it's a person who underwent GBV, and now because of the pain that they experience, the physical and the emotional pain that they experience, now they are like, I don't want anyone else to be affected or infected, so I have to be an activist against gender-based violence. And that's the same case with HIV, unintended pregnancies, and all the societal problems that we experience. But again, I want to make it very clear, you don't have to undergo that for you to be an activist or for you to step up. Anyone can step up, as long as, even if it means giving the right information to your neighbor, even if it means giving information to 5 girls or 10 girls or even 1 girl or even boys, then that's enough.
Okay. So the other question would be, as you mentioned before, you as organizations would want to reach to the younger generation as well, to the younger youth, if I may use the word, the adolescents who are mostly affected by this particular area. And so how do you go reach out to the younger generation, or are you just focused with the university? And is there a need to reach out more to the people who are more likely to keep to themselves? And how do you reach them? Because most of the time they wouldn't come looking for you, but you would go looking for them. What, in your view, would be the perfect solution to make sure that this, especially the adolescents, before they get to even high school, before they get to university, how can we give them this information so that we reduce your burden in the university level? What would be your view towards that?
First of all, I don't think it's a burden. And number 2, I think it's important to give this information to the adolescents, because they are one way or the other, they are affected and infected by these cases. However, these needs a lot of collaboration, first of all with people like you, the journalists, because I feel like the media shapes the society, the views of the society. So I think it's appropriate if we would have programs whereby people would openly talk about these things, because if I'm watching TV and I see people talking about it, then I'll be like, okay, so it doesn't happen to me alone, it doesn't happen to my neighbor alone. It can happen literally to anyone, and that reduces reduces discrimination. And when there is no discrimination, then that means I can be able to speak out. I can be able to look for help. The other day, I put up a post on my Instagram and I asked, in the Kenyan curriculum, the 844, we are taught about HIV in primary schools, in secondary schools, and in universities. Some universities, HIV is like a whole unit. But again, we still have very high rates of HIV infection in the country. And I asked, why do we still have these rates? If at all we are talked about it. I feel like there's a lot of discrimination when it comes to HIV, because even right now in the current society, people still point out and say, oh, she's living with HIV. But I feel like if we do away with this discrimination, and we tell people that they are not the only people who are facing these problems, they will be able to come out and speak about it. And also the most important thing is prevention. Before we come to the healing part, prevention is very important. And do we have these methods of prevention? Yes, they are there. Where are they? So we need to talk about how these people can access prevention, and just in case they get affected or infected, they can also be able to access care.
Do you think there's a gap between access of information and access of help? Because the access of information seems to be there, but when it comes to the actualization of what is actually the help that is actually needed to stop these young people from, contracting these particular diseases, the STIs, how is there a gap in between information and access to help?
I mean, when you're giving information, if I'm telling a kid about how they can contract STIs, I'll still go ahead and tell them, just in case it happens, this is where you can access help. So I don't think there's such a gap, because when we are giving information, we give out all the information, how to prevent yourself and where to seek help, where. Yeah.
So what do you think causes that huge difference between the fact that we have education in our schooling system, yet on the ground, young girls, because they are mostly affected, because we can see the effect of whatever may happen as a result of sexual violence or any other thing, especially with the pregnancy. We're seeing pregnancies coming, rising. The cases rising. We have seen, as you have said, the increase in numbers of HIV and AIDS. So what causes that imbalance then? If we seem to have the solution on the table, yet when it comes to the reality on the table, the problem seems to persist and even grow when it comes to issues like when you have economic recession, when you have pandemics, they seem to grow. What is this imbalance, and what is causing this imbalance to happen in the first place?
What causes the imbalance to happen? We are coming from our cultures as Africans. They don't allow us to have such conversations because at times they are related to immorality. And I think it's time, if you are able to have these conversations properly, then that will solve a huge problem. Again, you mentioned that these cases rise, especially during pandemics. This can also be associated with poverty, whereby we have young girls having transactional sex. And, when you're having transactional sex, that means you're not in control. It's what the other party says, then that's what we are doing. And I think that needs the government to come in and deal with these cases, because I feel like if we talk to these young girls about menstruation, then there will be nothing like period shaming. Because the other day we had a story of a girl who used to live with a brother, and then she went to school, she got her first period, she went back home, the brother actually killed her, saying that she had an affair with a man. So I think if both women and men know about these issues, then that will solve a huge problem. I also think if we are able to keep all kids in school, because if a baby goes to school, then that means they will be engaged for a very long time. But if the baby is still at home, then that gives them a lot of time, and they are exposed to these people, the perpetrators.
All right, thank you so much. Unfortunately, I'm told that our time is up for the evening. Thank you so much for joining us in this particular interesting conversation. We shall be sure to keep engaging our audiences and helping them to learn on this particular conversation on all aspects of health, and we shall get to grow together. Thank you so much for joining us for this particular conversation. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
All right. We take a short break right here on KTV Primetime News. We'll come back with more stories. Don't go anywhere.
Dairy cow have a huge bone frame. Yet our beef cows, they need the meat part of it. So they may have a small bone frame. So when we interbreed the beef cow and the dairy cow, now it's like bring the beef and placing on a huge bone frame of the dairy cow.
Hello everybody! I'm Nena. And I'm Gigi. Welcome to Engine Season 2! The place to find out about the world we live in and the creatures that we share our planet with. Join us on the most exciting adventures across the African continent. See breathtaking wildlife, stunning landscapes, and out of this world technologies. Meet incredible scientists and learn fantastic facts. Explore, discover, be amazed. Be part of the next generation of African change makers. Be a part of Engine, Africa's #1 science discovery program. Yay!
We're learning every day. Engine leads the way.
What are some of the ways through which you can develop these skills so that we are comfortably fitting into the job?
You have to put yourself in positions where you are uncomfortable. Uncomfortable in the sense that you are not clear about what to do.
Because I used to work a corporate job before. So when I left, I happened to visit someone's farm around this area.
So this project is called Security Breach Detector and Can Familiarize. It is meant to be used to detect, detonate explosive.
We'll tackle all the tough issues, discuss all the weird moments, and hopefully share a few laughs along the way.
You are watching KUTV Primetime News with MUTEGI K. Martin.
All right, welcome back to KUTV Primetime News. Now, a group of squatters from Kiambu County have called on the government to solve a 419-acre land dispute that has lasted for over 27 years. While pleading with the president, the squatters have accused local administrators of conspiring with land cartels and denying them their rights. Let's take a look at this story.
A group of squatters under the umbrella of Committee Forest Squatters Association is accusing local administrators of colluding with cartels to drive them out of the land, saying that they have lived there since 1996. According to the Squatters Association chairman Philip Macau, the 419 acres land was allocated to them by the former President Daniel Arap Moi in 1996 and has grown over the years from 500 to 2,500 residents who are now living in temporary structures.
Kwa hivyo ile kitu tungeomba tuelewe, ile shamba ilipewa maskini na Moi, na wale wako ndani ni matajiri. Watu wako na mangoroba zao nje, wako na mali nyingi zao nje, lakini walitukuja kutusuilia haki yetu. Kwa hivyo tungeomba serikali ije itutatulie mkokolo ule huko hapa wa matajiri na sisi.
While calling for President Ruto's intervention to ensure that justice prevails, Mr. Macau further accused Kiambu local administrators of harassment and conspiring with land cartels to deny them their rights.
Niliandika barua nyingi sana kwa serikali ya Kiambu zile zinadhihirisha historia ya shamba na vile tunanyanyasika, na kupikia mahali tuko hatuoni mabadiliko kidogo tu, ni nyumba kuendelea kujengwa za matajiri na wale ambaye tulipewa shamba, hata unakuta tunasuiliwa hata kulima.
Macau also claimed that about 140 newcomers have invaded the land and started building palatial homes, while original residents are not allowed to build even temporary structures.
Sisi tukijaribu kuweka tunyumba pale, wanapomoa, wanatumia pesa, tunapomolewa. Wao hata wakiletewe hoda, waache kujenga, wanajenga na usiku. So, serikali ya Kiambu ikaonesha bado ina uhusiano na matajiri, haijali sisi.
According to a Gazette notice dated 17th January of 2017, NEMA held a public participation on Environmental Impact Assessment report regarding a request by the Squatters Association to degazette the forest. However, decades after crying for justice, the squatters' fate still hangs in the air. Charles Kirubi, KUTV.
Now, the Kenyan government is creating shelters for human trafficking survivors. According to the authorities, the goal is to help victims recover from their traumatic experiences, rebuild their lives, and prosecute human traffickers.
Sasa ni mimi na hao wasichana wawili walinirescue kwa.
Mercy Njeru says her two attempts to find work in the Middle East in 2014 and 2020 turned horrific. Both times she was promised work in an office and instead ended up as a domestic worker in private homes, where Njeru says she was beaten and overworked.
If I did not finish some work, they would beat me. Or, for example, when the baby would cry and bother them, and I did not hear the baby cry because I was cleaning somewhere else, he and his brothers would come and beat me up.
Njeru managed to get out with the help of an aid group called Heart Kenya, but officials say she's an exception. Many victims of human trafficking remain trapped. Now the Kenyan government is setting up shelters for victims of human trafficking. Authorities say many survivors do not have a place to live, making it difficult to help them and investigate their traffickers.
We require to keep them in a safe place as investigations are ongoing, and also to enable them reintegrate back to the society. So we have specialists in all sectors to assist them build up their confidence so that they are able to fit into the society.
The government says many Kenyans are lured with the promise of jobs online and sent primarily to the Middle East and Far East countries such as Laos, Malaysia, and Thailand. The UN Refugee Agency says protection of victims of human trafficking are severely lacking, especially in Africa. Some are left to suffer repeated and multiple forms of abuse and even die. Non-profits such as Heart Kenya are working to help.
We provide the support either by helping them to come back to the country or helping them if they need support in terms of getting different forms of direct assistance, such as legal aid, therapy, medical intervention, or we support them to restart the plants.
Like Njeru's plan for her future, she's studying to be a hairdresser now. Aid groups and government officials say they hope by working together, more victims of human trafficking can be saved and more traffickers prosecuted. Victoria Amunga for VOA News, Nairobi.
All right, we take another short break right here on KUTV Primetime News. We come back with more stories. Stay tuned.
Cow have a huge bone frame, yet our beef cows, they need the meat part of it, so they may have a small bone frame. So when we interbreed the beef cow and the dairy cow, now it's like bring the beef and placing on a huge bone frame of the dairy cow.
exciting adventures across the African continent.
See breathtaking wildlife, stunning landscapes,
and out of this world technologies.
Meet incredible scientists
and learn fantastic facts.
Explore, discover, be amazed.
Be part of the next generation of African change makers.
Be a part of Engine, Africa's #1 science discovery program. Yay!
We're learning every day. Engine leads the way.
Now, welcome back. Defending champions Wieta will take on Butere Girls in the final school games after stunning Dagoretti Mixed 3-1 and Madeira Soccer Assassins 1-0 respectively on Friday morning in the ongoing national championships at Buhungu Stadium. Diana Anyango's goal in the first half was enough to help Butere Girls book a spot in the finals in their home turf. In another match played in the semi-finals, Eswell defending champions Wieta edged out Dagoretti Mixed 3-1. Right, we move on to athletics, where the 2 times 800 World Olympics champion David Rudisha is among the 3 ambassadors picked for this year World Athletics Championships slated for the 19th to the 27th of August 2023 in Budapest, Hungary. The 800-meter world records, David Rudisha is among the 3 ambassadors, and he will be together with Daley Thompson of Great Britain and former high jump world champion Blanka Vlasic of Croatia. All right, we've come to the close of our conversation tonight. However, the conversation does not stop here. Tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. we have Mizizi Weekendi, and at 9 p.m. we have Weekend Live, courtesy of KUTV News Team. Be sure to join us in those particular broadcasts, including our very entertaining programs, educative programs, and everything that we have to offer right here on KUTV, from religious programs to entertainment to news to sports. And we shall be sure to keep informing you on what's happening in the country and beyond. Our sign language interpreter is MUTAVA Mongeni. My name is MUTEGI K. Martin. Good night.